Mhm.
I'll tell you right now that I can see your screen, but I can look over at Rod, and Rod has a black screen.
Well, it shouldn't be hard to get this solved since it happens fairly often. I'll get an IT guy down here to walk around and figure this thing out. Okay, so our learning goals today. So we're going to talk a little bit about why BIM 360. We're going to talk about the differences between Nebula and BIM 360. We're going to talk a little bit about how to navigate a model, how to access other documents like AutoCAD files and things like that, and a little summary at the end. So you're in the right class if you thought you were in a BIM 360 class. So why BIM 360? So we used to be able to purchase from Autodesk a network license that allowed us to install AutoCAD or Revit on everybody's computer, and it would only pull a license when you actually opened it and used it. So we were able to buy, I think we had like 22 seats of software and put it on, everybody's computers. And then people could get to AutoCAD, they could get to Revit, and they could, if you knew how to use them, you could jump in and do stuff. The way Autodesk changed their licensing, they no longer sell those types of seats. Their new method for accessing drawings, if you're not a creator, is BIM 360. So unless we all want to spend $3,000 per person per year to access an occasional AutoCAD file, it'd be great if we could use the software they're allowing us to use that's pretty much free. So that's kind of why we're looking at BIM 360 as a way to see your models and to see your documents and to see the AutoCAD files. Any questions on that? Hey, it's gonna be a fast class. Okay, so there's three different things I'm going to show you today. One is Nebula, which is the way we built our access to our models. So that's a Walters and Wolf program that gets to our models, and I'll show you that in a minute. There's a website for how you would get to invite yourself to projects in BIM 360, and that's the Walters and Wolf Glass website, and I'll show you that in a minute. And then there's BIM 360, which is basically how the rest of the world accesses their models. And there's a few features there that are not present in Nebula, so you'll probably be doing a little mix of both. But the Walters and Wolf Glass one is really just how you get access, and I'll show you that. So those are our three things you're going to get today. And we don't have to summarize yet because we're going to go straight into it. All right, so Nebula was set up so that you would have easy access to your models through the portal. So the way this works, Zach wrote a program to access the models, but it uses one central account. Because I pictured that day when Randy Wolf or Nick Cosell wanted to see a model, and they went in here and they had to get to BIM 360. They had to figure out what their login was. They had to authorize their accounts. They had to, and it would just be like a regular crap show. So we wanted something that was simple and easy. So simple and easy is you just click on the model, picture at the bottom left, and as long as your job has a job number, you're good. This one does not, so that's fun. What did I do? Because I just opened up a minute ago. Yeah, well, what did I do? Let's go to resource building reskin. Picture. So this is BIM 360 and presenting the model that was last saved by the drafting group for everybody's use. So up here, you're going to see this is version 13. So this is the 13th time that Celine published this model out for everybody to view. It also gives you the Revit version because a lot of times with your teams, they have to access the Revit model with the right Revit version. So it's a nice place to be able to see quickly which version of Revit we use to draw the model. So you can get both of those up here in the title bar. In order to get around the model, just very quickly, You've got some different controls down here. Normally the orbit is the one that's highlighted when you first get here. And if you hold down your mouse and spin, you can see the model in different directions. And then if you use your middle wheel, you can zoom in and zoom out to get closer and further from the model. I'll walk through a little bit more of that stuff in a minute. I just wanted to show a couple of features. So what we did up here is there's different views that are available. So it depends on how the drafter published it. In this case, Celine actually published both the 2D and 3D sheets, so you can get to both. But typically there'll be a default 3D view that's shown up here at the top. So you can always click on this button to see the different views that are available in the model. And then the button next to it is the colors. So in that case, we can look at this if there's a palette schedule, which this one's probably too new to have one, but it would definitely, you can see all the unit information listed down here. So let me go to a job that has a palette schedule real quick. Let's do Gateway Pacific. Again, you can see this is the 14th version of this. It's Revit 2021. And up here under the colors, we can go to a palette schedule that shows the individual palette colors. So you can see the actual palette information that was done by the field. You can also look at it by weeks. So this is our sequencing plan, again, done by the field. And lastly, you can look at it by progress. And there's several different progresses you're going to see. In this particular case, we're partly installed. So you can see that the field has completed all the stuff that's sort of this mustard kind of color. The shop has completed everything that's sort of cyan colored. And if there were things the shop hadn't completed, you would see a green color for the engineering group having been completed on their work. If you are in the middle of fab tickets, there's also a ready for checking color that shows up because as the guys mark off their units to be completed so somebody can check it, that color will come up. So there's a couple different things you're going to see if you go into this model and want to see your progress on things. So one of the nice advantages of having this stuff tied to our database is the guys do their palette schedules off the model, and then all that information is available to you through Nebula.
Quick question. The field,
Yes.
when they're doing that field complete, are they updating that daily? Like at the
Yes.
end of each day? Okay, cool.
Yeah, and the shop too. The
Okay.
shop actually goes it's on the line, so it's actually more than daily. But
Yeah,
the field, I think, is typically doing them at end of day. So
okay.
so it should give you a
Nice.
pretty good picture of where you're at on the site. All right. So I want to introduce you to a wiki page on our wiki. And this is one that was maintained by Gabriel. So if you type BIM 360 up in the search bar on the wiki, you'll find a page called BIM 360. That's the page I'm on. So on this page, there's a number of videos and some information that should help you if you run into problems. We're using Google Chrome as our default. How do I activate my membership? There's a video and some things like that if you've run into any problems with that. But hopefully you're good, because I only heard from one person that had any problems. And then how do I log into BIM 360? There's a link right here that takes you to it. And then how do I view a model? There's a nice little video that gives you some tips and tricks on viewing. And then how do I add myself to a project in Nebula, which is what we're going to cover next. So I'll walk you through that in a second. And lastly, how do I navigate the models and what's my file structure? And I'll talk to you about those in a second too. So what happens is when we first start a job, Gabriel will set up for the pre-construction group a pre-con BIM 360 site for each of the jobs that we're going to bid. Then as the job becomes a project, those get elevated to a regular BIM 360 site with our job numbers in them. And that's when Nebula can see them. So if you first get a job and the picture at the bottom left doesn't take you somewhere, or it tells you can't find that job number, it's because that job number isn't in BIM 360 yet, but it will be shortly, because it's usually within a few weeks of getting the job that we get the job number that we get that site converted over. But let's say you needed to get to some BIM 360 stuff. So this link, waltersandwolfglass.com, if I click on that, it's going to take me to the page that Zach created for us. And what you'll see over here is the Walters and Wolf BIM 360 site. And if you do the drop down here, these are all of our projects. So as you scroll down, you'll see all the jobs listed, and then you'll see all the pre-con jobs listed also. So maybe you want to be able to see, maybe you're involved in some of the pre-bid stuff and you want to look at one of the early jobs, you can see them from here. Or if it's a regular job, it should show it. We used to call them sales. Don't tell Vince, they're called pre-con now. But the older ones that are still called sales are still here. I'm sorry, it's pre-con, Steve. So, okay.
He's
and
probably
then
cringing, right?
I'm sure he is. And then if I click the little thing next to it, you'll see kind of the folders and things like that. But if you need to add yourself to a job, you'll click the plus sign, and then you'll add the job number here. So whatever your job number is going to be, I don't know what the job number is, but that's how you add yourself to a project. So let's say when Gabe set the site up, he invites a certain list of people that need to have access to things on BIM 360. But let's say you want to have access on BIM 360 and nobody set you up for that. You can just come in here and do this job number, and it will then add you to the project. So if you are, maybe new to BIM 360 and you want to put a couple jobs in here, just come to this site from that wiki page, click the plus sign up here, and then put in the job numbers that you want to have access to, and it should invite you to those projects automatically based on your login up here at the top. So that might be something that you would want to try in the class and just make sure everything's working, but I did a few of them with some different people and it seemed to be good. So. All being quiet, we're going to move along. All right, so let's talk about BIM 360, the actual BIM 360 website. So I'm going to click my link here. And again, on that web page, you'll see the link to get to BIM 360. This is the BIM 360 docs section. This is where you want to be in order to get to your models. I'm going to come up here to the top, and you'll see that, there's a little Walters Wolf account. And then as I scroll down, these are all the jobs I've been invited to. And I get pretty much invited to everything, so pretty much everything's in here. But for you, the ones that will show up under projects will be the ones you have been invited to or you invited yourself to. So if you come to here, or if you come in, there's nothing to see, or maybe you definitely get yourself invited to a couple jobs. Otherwise, you may have some weird experiences coming to the BIM 360 site since it doesn't know what to show you. But let's just pick a job. I'll do something like, again, up here at the top, you can start typing. So I'll do the Gateway of Pacific again. And now you see up here that I'm in the Gateway of Pacific project. I've got, on the left, I've got a folder view, which is, we don't use sets right now. So folders are what you want. And then it'll drop you right into project files right at the beginning. And where we keep our models is in the root directories. So the model that you want to look at, the most recent model, is right here under GOP South Central RVT. So it'll be under project files, and it'll be the first model you see when you first come to the site. So that's where we keep the main model. So if I click on this, now I'm in BIM 360, and I'm looking at the Revit model in BIM 360, not Nebula. So you see up at the top right, I don't have the colors anymore. I don't have the different things over there. It's a different interface. So once again, I can hold my mouse down and I can, pan around. I can spin the model around to look at things, different angles, different ways. I can zoom in, I can zoom out. There's some tools down here, and I'll walk through these really quick. Actually, first, anybody any questions yet? Just make sure.
Is this the same model that we would click on in our portal?
It's the exact same model, yes.
I have a kind of stupid question, but everybody knows I'm like challenged when it comes to technology. When I log on to BIM 360, I don't know why, but it always takes me to a project that I did with NBBJ. Like that's like the default account. Can I change that to Walters and Wolf somehow?
Yes, but I don't know how, but I can
Okay.
find out.
Okay,
That's not a
cool.
stupid question because I have,
Thank you.
other people have been invited to things too, and then it shows up in weird ways. So.
So Steve,
That's
why
just kind
would
of-
we go into BIM 360 when we can just go into the portal?
So that's what I was going to walk through real quick, just to give you a couple things that you can do in here that you can't do in there.
10-4.
So let me walk you through that real quick. So
Yes, so same thing that you had, Nicole, is happening on me on Gateway Pacific. I'm going straight to FLAD, like Architects, their whole BIM model thing in there, and it's nothing like this at all, so. Because what's the first thing to get right into is it's their BIM, which is the whole job that goes across with all the different subcontractors also involved in it.
yeah,
So it's not-
and it may be that like I said, if you can click on that link from that page, it might give you a different entry point. Like your computer, the link you have or how you're getting BIM 360 today might be different than that link.
Okay.
So I would start there, but if that doesn't work, then we can get it resolved.
Sure.
Hey, Steve, if you open up a model and there's areas, most everything that's in our scope is colored, right? If something is in your scope but not colored, does that mean it's not updated in the model?
It depends. So the colors in this initial view are just colors that people chose. And I'll show you a couple things to look at for that in a minute. So
Okay,
let
because
me
things
walk
are
through this.
drawn, it's drawn and I see the parts, but they're not colored, that's all.
Yeah, well, let me walk you through that because there's
Okay.
a couple things you need to look at beyond just that color. So let me show you something in 2 seconds. So down here at the bottom again, the same set of tools. So let's say I don't want to orbit, I want to pan. If I do the pan, then it just pans when I use my mouse rather than orbiting. There's two different kinds of orbits. There are, and I'll walk you through those real quick. There's a free orbit and a regular orbit. So free orbit spins every direction. The regular orbit sort of typically spins more directionally, and I find the regular orbit to be more a little easier to use. So I would, you can play with both, but this one's a little easier. The other thing is you get this view cube up here at the right. So sometimes it's nice to be able to just get a totally, orthogonal view, like straight on. So these views are nice that way to get the top view or the bottom view or whatever. And then the other thing is if you do like a corner, you get a nice isometric. And if you kind of go in the middles, you can kind of get different isometric views. So the cube is nice if you're not really sure how you want to orbit or which way you want to see it. You can also hold your mouse down and spin this thing a little bit too. So you can kind of adjust it from here if you find the orbiting weird. So that's just a couple different things you can take a look at if you're not sure exactly what view you want. Sometimes this thing is a good way to zoom in on things and get them where you want them. So hand over a little bit. There's a fit to view button. So if you get super lost, just hit that button, it'll zoom in to view. There's a first person account. So when you do this, it allows you to kind of walk around. You can use your arrow buttons to walk. And so you can kind of, sort of slowly go toward things and away from things and up and down and things like that. So that may be of interest. Sometimes it's nice to be able to get a view like that. Window. Right. You can measure things on the units. So let's say I want to measure something from one location to another. I click the little measure button, and then I can pick 2 points. This is super fun with a trackpad, by the way. But you can see I've 5'3" from center to center here. So you can measure things right on the model if you want to. So that's a nice feature. And then you can do angular dimensions. You can also, you won't need to calibrate because the Revit model is already calibrated. And then, you know, there are measurement settings. So if you'd rather see it in decimal feet, or you'd rather see it feet in fractional inches, or, you know, whatever precision you'd like to see it in, you know, you can change those settings. Section analysis. So this is sort of interesting. So you can build like a little box, and then you can kind of drag this thing, it will cut through your model. So this is sort of an interesting way to view what's going on in your model by cutting through it. There's also different kinds of, you don't have to use the box. There are these other little planes, like different planes like this, where it's just one plane, and you can kind of cut through it that way. So just different ways to slice the model if you want to see sections and that kind of thing. You can do a split view mode where you can have one thing on the left, one thing on the right. There's also compare mode. I'll talk to you about that in a second. The model browser, sometimes this is nice. Like maybe I want to turn everything off in the model and just see the curtain wall. You know, maybe I want to, in the curtain wall section, maybe I want to turn everything off and just see the handrails and just elevation 9. And then this will sort of like just highlight those things in the model. So you can kind of view different types of things from here. So that might be of interest also, just to separate out like floors and ceilings and things like that. That might be in your way. And then properties will give you the information about different things in the model. So if I select a piece of glass, you'll see that this is an infill glass piece, and you know, you can see what level it's on, the dimensions of the glass, all the rest of the stuff is listed here.
Does it give you
And-
square footage, Steve, like a square foot?
Yeah, 56 square feet right here.
So recently I had to do a change order for a bunch of bird frit glass.
Mhm.
So can you go around this and select all the glass and it'll add it up?
You could, but it you know, I don't know how hard that would be to do. So I've grabbed 4 lights of glass. It gives you the sum right here. You could also get the average, you could get the count,
Oh, wow, that's handy.
the
Where are
median,
you,
the
Steve?
mode,
You're in
the rate.
properties?
Yeah, so I'm in the properties window. So I've selected a bunch of glass, and then I can get, you know, I can get the, you know, sum of all the square footages or whatever, right? So yes, you could do that.
Hey, Steve, can you also do that with the mullions?
As far as,
Same thing like square footage. I know you just grabbed onto a couple pieces of glass.
let's see what data we have for the mullion. It's got the family name. Tells you what elevation it's on, what level it's on. Gives you the volume. Gives you the length of the mullion. I don't see the square footage on mullions.
How did you come up with that data? I can't seem to get the same thing on my screen.
Oh, so go to properties
Mm-hmm.
and then just select a piece of glass, and it should fill it in, should say something like this, infill glass or whatever.
It's just coming up with a different window. I mean, my properties window opens up, but it, oh, I see it now. All right, I didn't see it a second ago. Got it.
Correct. So those are the basics on the buttons at the bottom. What I wanted to show you is a couple other things real quick though. So once you are done with this model, let's say you want to leave this, you click this close button up here on the top right. That takes you back out. So under linked models, and this again might be of interest for you guys. If I go to the architectural model, I can look at just the architectural model. So, you know, this isn't the Walters and Wolff curtain wall model. This is the architect's model. And the reason I was talking about the colors, Paul, is because there are times when you're looking at stuff in BIM 360 and it's actually showing you 2 or 3 models at once. It may not just be the curtain wall model. It could also be the architect's model, the structural model, other models, precast model. So sometimes the reason that maybe the colors aren't the same or it doesn't show it the same way could be because you're looking at a composite model of multiple things.
Oh, okay.
So you just have to be careful about that because it happens at times that you'll see more.
Earlier when I'm sorry.
Okay, but this job had no precast model, but you would see it here if we had one. The sales model is usually listed here, that where we started, and then the structural model is down here that we got from the customer. So the project files is where you'd want to get our model, but you can see the models we're working from, at least the most current ones, down here under linked models. Because sometimes maybe you want to see the architect's model and use that for something versus our models. So.
Can you overlay the models for like a clash detection thing, or we don't do that?
So not within this software, but there is another interesting feature. So let me go back to the main model. And let's go down here to this little compare button. So you can select, I'm in version 14, but maybe I want to see what's different between this version and a previous version of the model. So you can have it do a comparison, and then it should highlight what's different between the models. Now, on a giant model like this, it's going to be kind of hard to see, but you can do this with like different sheets and things like that. But you can see that there were 163 things that got added, 65 things that got removed, and 3,832 that got modified. Like I said, it's probably kind of hard to see it in a big old view like this. But if you were, you know, if somebody just made a change and posted the model, and you know what that change was supposed to be, it would sort of give you a way to compare the two models if you wanted to. So.
Okay.
Just out of curiosity, the nomenclature, when you click on like a unit, the type, I know that's glass type. I'm just real curious, how come it doesn't say glass type? Just says type.
Yeah, just because I think the standard Revit nomenclature was that.
Oh.
As you know what I mean? Like, so I think
it's pretty obvious. I was just curious.
Yeah, no, I think it's sort of like that. Yeah, the other thing with the model is everything's sort of an individual thing. You know, they had it set up differently in the past where you could click on something, you'd see the whole unit. But the way the Revit models have been changed over time, at this point, you select individual things. You can't select a whole unit in the model. So, if you were wondering. So once again, if I go back to my wiki page, so I managed to close. So login information, how to activate the membership, how to view the model. I've got a little video listed there. How to add yourself to Project Nebula. This is that thing here, so you can get yourself added to certain Walters and Wolff jobs. And then how to navigate around the model. then here's our file structure right here. So we are currently doing Revit and AutoCAD in BIM 360. So I can show you what that looks like. So if I come back and I get out of the model with the little closed box on the top right, and I go, let's say, to drafting, go to the takeoff group. Down to, let's say, the units folder. So these are the units that the takeoff group is working on. So if I click on this unit, just like you were in AutoCAD, you can then go in and see this. You can measure things, you can view things. But the nice thing you can't do, very easily in some of the viewers for AutoCAD is you can also see this unit in 3D. Because when we build these units for the takeoff group, we're doing them as a 3D model. So you can actually see the unit and all its setting blocks and glass and everything else in this model. And of course, if you go into the properties window, you can get all the data for the different parts and pieces that we have here. So,
Steve, I have a question. So
yes,
this is all just viewing abilities. There's no, by going in here, we're not going to change anything and mess something up, right?
correct. That's the best part, right? So everything in BIM 360 is set up so the creation happens, through the software, and then BIM 360 is the viewer. Yes, so you can't mess it up, and it doesn't change it for somebody else when you're viewing it one way and they're viewing it a different way. So, and several people can be in the same file at the same time viewing it, and it doesn't matter.
Thanks.
Steve, can you show how you got to here again, that sheets and views area?
Yes.
So if I'm just on the overall model page.
Yeah, so typically this is what your folders would look like here. So project files is always the top level. Then usually there'll be a drafting folder, maybe a jumpstart folder, depending on what we did in BIM 360. And then as you expand those folders, then you'll see the other folders here.
Oh, should you have a drafting folder, or that's only after fabs and things are done? Because there's no drafting folder in this one job.
It typically, well, it kind of depends on where we are on the job. So it would happen definitely once the takeoff group got in there. And if it was before we had all our problems with the little Russian people, then you probably wouldn't have it. So it depends on where the job is in. But typically the current projects that are going through, if somebody's working on something in AutoCAD, they're using this for it.
Oh, okay. I see. Okay.
Right. And that's the basic overview. That's how you get to your model through Nebula, through the portal. That's how you sign up for to be part of a project so you can see them in BIM 360. If you want to see them in BIM 360 itself. Nebula works for everybody. So you can get to anybody's model by clicking that bottom left thing. You don't have to be invited. You don't have to sign in. You don't have to do anything. But if you want to go to BIM 360, you got to invite yourself to the project or get invited to the project. So once you invited yourself to a couple of projects, then you go to BIM 360. You should be able to access those from this top section up here. And this would list anything you've been invited to. And then by clicking on that job, then you should be able to get to the model and any other files that we have for that job in BIM 360 from that location. So now when I say, hey, you can see that in BIM 360, now you know what I'm talking about.
So the only thing we're using BIM 360 for is to look at the model, yeah?
Yes. So, and I think in the offsite, that was the whole conversation was like, just how do I get to it? Where is it? Do I even have access? So we're just making sure everybody can get there. Everybody can see it. The future may be very different. We may do more things in BIM 360, but for today, yeah, just you can see your model, the progress of your model. You can see where the takeoff group is when they're working on your model. You can see where the shop is, where the field is when they're working on your model. You can see your palette schedule, your sequencing, your weeks. all through the visual of the model.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Question, Steve.
Yes.
Is there any reason why when we're on the portal, that model wouldn't be the most updated version? Because I feel like sometimes I've gone to the portal and it's like an outdated version, whereas when I go to BIM, it's like a different model.
Yeah, so here's the thing. We weren't, since a lot of people weren't using the model very often, especially like, let's say before takeoffs, the drafting group wasn't always publishing that often. But when I talked to James about it, we're now going to publish weekly. So, usually when you get to the, by the time you get to the takeoff group, we've published the most recent model because we need it for the balance schedule and everything else. But there were times before when the shop drawings weren't getting published very often. So our goal is to publish every week on all the jobs that we're working on. So.
Okay, cool.
Very cool.
That was awesome.
Thank you, Steve.
You got it. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
You got
Bye.
it.
Thank
you.
you.
Appreciate
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.